Welcome back to another episode of Raised by Giants. We are live. Welcome everyone in the chat. Good to see you guys and any channel members and or moderators out there. Thanks for joining us here today. We have someone with us that's going to give us his best interpretation of what's going on in New Jersey. There's so many different theories going on out there. He's former DOD and U.S. Army military intelligence and has firsthand knowledge of these types of drones that may be hovering over New Jersey. But a reminder that the show is also a podcast that you can find on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. It's always been available as a podcast, and the show is normally uploaded to those platforms directly after it is live on YouTube. So if you can't watch the live stream or if you don't want to watch the video version, you can always follow the show on any and all podcast platforms and download the show there for your listening pleasure later on. Also, people have been reaching out to me and asking how they can support my show, and I direct them to the channel memberships, which are really the best way to help support the show monthly for less than a cup of coffee. And you can become a channel member and get access to bonus episodes. So click that join button beside the name of the channel under the video and become a Ryder Ranger channel member today and help support the show monthly and get access to those bonus episodes. But you can also click the more button right under where you're watching the video, and it'll pull down a list of all the links to my guest information and all of my information on there. Some people don't know how that works. They're just like, what is the description? But just click the more button right under the video and it'll drop down with all the links. So with that down, we have with us today former DOD, U.S. Army military intelligence, anti-terrorism, counterintelligence, and security specialist, recently retired, Trey Hudson. Welcome back to the show. It's good to see you.
Well, Wendy, I'm home. No, yeah, I thought I'd give you a little shout out there to your latest project. Yeah, I'm doing great. Hope everybody is having a festive and happy holiday season, whatever flavor your December celebrations take. I hope it's very good for you and your listeners. And this is a subject believe it or not, I've been getting phone calls from people all over asking me for my opinion on this. And so I'm going to put that out there, and we'll just see kind of where we go.
Yeah, there's so many different theories rolling around about these drones and what's really going on, from Project Blue Beam to foreign intelligence gathering to suitcase nukes and all kinds of different things. And the other day, Trump actually posted on Truth Social to mystery drone sightings all over the country. Can this really be happening without our government's knowledge? I don't think so. Let the public know. And now otherwise shoot them down. He said, shoot them down, Trey. He's telling the public to shoot these drones down if you don't know what they are. But then he also made a statement last night that the government knows exactly what they are, which we're going to listen to right now.
All the drones that are flying around New Jersey ports. It seems like the American people have a big disconnect.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should, because the people are really, they happen to be over Bedminster.
Will you shoot them down?
They're very close to Bedminster. I think maybe I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster.
So that's him basically saying the government knows what they are, the military knows what they are, but they're not telling the public what they are. What do you think of his statements there, and why would the government or the military know what they are and not inform the public about what they are? And you're a former U.S. Military, so you would know this.
Yeah.
This is your wheelhouse, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because I have reached out to some contacts still in the Department of Defense, both in the force protection / anti-terrorism world and also over in the intelligence side of it. It's interesting that based on speaking to these individuals, the DoD is not terribly. Let me rephrase that. The Department of Defense is always concerned about unauthorized airframes, be they aircraft, manned or unmanned or anything else entering into their airspace. That's a force protection, concern. So they always have had a concern about unmanned aerial vehicles. I know right before I left DoD, a lot of places were starting to stand up their unmanned aerial vehicle countermeasures working groups, and coming up with countermeasures, reporting criteria, starting to link up with other agencies and try to kind of get a handle on it. So that's important to know. Is at least one FBI regional office, and I'm talking regional, had a meeting within the past 14 days, and they brought their stakeholders in, and they told their stakeholders, we're just going to bring you up to speed and refresh your memory on what we perceive as the UAV threat, or UAS, unmanned aerial systems. These are the type of commercial drones that are out there. These are the type of hobby drones that are out there. These are how they're configured. This is what their lights look like. These are their capabilities. And if you encounter these over your airspace, this is the reporting criteria, and this is a reporting stovepipe that we want. We've got one stovepipe that goes up law enforcement, one stovepipe that goes up the intelligence network. There has been a concern for many years of nefarious actors acting on behalf of foreign governments, flying commercial drones over sensitive U.S. Military and governmental installations and sending that information back to their home country. Now, whether these are professional IOs, intelligence officers, or just someone tasked by their home country when they come here, that remains to be seen. But that's always been a concern. So, but the DoD is not on a heightened state of alert from what I know, from what my sources tell me about these drones. It's more of a general awareness of what's going on.
Now, when Trump says that if they were foreign, because that was one of the first things that came out, there was a Republican congressman that said that this was a Iranian mothership that was off the East Coast that was sending in all these drones that are now over New Jersey. And Trump said, well, it's not a foreign threat, because if it was a foreign threat, then it would be shot down. So are we thinking that these are our technology, that these are our drones?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I am the world's foremost expert on my opinion. I'll put that out there. So this is my opinion, and I am just a dude like everybody else. Based on the videos that I have seen, on broadcast television. Well, yeah, there's a little drone that we had in Afghanistan, but based on the videos that I've seen put out by the media, is most of those look like aircraft, and there's some very distinct telltale signs that indicate an aircraft. And forgive me, my printer isn't working very well, but that's kind of a outline of aircraft lighting configuration. What's really interesting is this one right here. If you notice, you have red and green rotating beacons on the tail, or on the wingtips rather. And then you also have strobing position lights strobing on the tail. You have red rotating beacons, your anti-collision lights that rotate up on top. And then in the front of the aircraft, when they are in approach to an airport, they turn on their landing lights. And there's a system called the alternating landing light system, where the lights will wig-wag, their landing lights. So, I start looking at these videos and I see a green light, red light, white position light, flashing red beacon in the middle, and then flashing lights in front of it. That's obviously an aircraft. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is how full our airspace is. I know I live in a rural area, and I use a program called Flight Radar 24, and you can just open that program up, and it'll show you the air traffic in your AO, your area of operation. And the skies are absolutely full of this stuff. So I think what we're looking at are three things. is, I think, probably 95% of the things that people are capturing on video or are seeing are aircraft. I think they have never had a chance or never really thought about looking into the skies. I'll give you an example. I bought a camper about a month ago, pull behind camper, pull behind my truck. And once I bought that camper, I started kind of noticing campers everywhere. I mean, those things are everywhere. And I'd never really noticed it before because I never had a reason to look. Now people are looking into the sky. Second thing I think going on is a little bit of mass hysteria. Back in the mid-40s, there was an incident called the Montan Gasser in Illinois. And it's a story that happened in the mid-40s where this guy was believed to be going around to people's houses and squirting some sort of noxious gas into their homes. And it's believed that there might have been one or two incidences of some type of noxious gas being introduced into someone's house by some means, maybe not even necessarily a person, but it led to mass hysteria and people got spun up. So you're getting, in my opinion, people that haven't really been paying a lot of attention to the skies, maybe you're not aware of the configuration of aircraft lighting, and now they're paying attention and they're hearing from their friends and neighbors, and they're constantly being fed a trough full of slop from the mass media about drones invading our airspace. And now they see drones everywhere. And everybody likes, a sexy, scary story. So obviously they must be bad. Who wants to run outside and say, oh my God, I saw an airplane? That's pretty damn boring. I ran outside and I saw this thing that I couldn't see and it was flashing, and it must be what they're talking about on TV.
Now, do these drones that you're familiar with, that this is a picture of you standing beside a drone in Afghanistan, correct?
Right.
Do these types of drones that you're aware of, did they have the ability to just stay in the same spot, or did they have to constantly be in motion? Because some of the video that I've seen from some of these reports, they kind of just seem to be hovering in the same spot.
Right. Okay. And then I got this particular drone that you're seeing on the screen here is the Army's Sky Warrior program, which is the same thing as the Predator. And it's actually driven by a prop in a tractor or a pusher configuration rather. And it flies like an airplane, and it has, when it's flying in airspace that it needs to be lit up, it has all the airplane lights and everything. It's an airplane. It just doesn't have a pilot in it. Now, the other 4%, I said 95%, I think, are airplanes or authorized commercial or governmental drones on legitimate flight plans. 4.5%, I think, are naughty drone pilots. People that have hobby drones and are flying them around. And I'll give you two examples that came up just this week. Near Picatinny Arsenal, there was a paranormal researcher that has a podcast and YouTube channel. I'm not going to mention his name, but he was hearing about drones flying over the Picatinny Arsenal. Okay, Picatinny Arsenal, most of this month has been issued a temporary flight restriction by the FAA. And the TFR basically limits all air traffic above Picatinny Arsenal without specific FAA approval. Well, this guy saw what he thought was a drone flying over Picatinny Arsenal, so he decided to launch his own drone. And as he was approaching the first drone, his ran out of power and crashed into Picatinny Arsenal. Guess who now has federal law enforcement problems?
That guy.
Mr. Michael B. in New Jersey now has federal law enforcement problems.
But that's the whole issue and the problem with this drones over New Jersey, because people have reported that they've done that they've sent up their own drones to try and investigate what's going on with these other drones, and then they just immediately fall out of the sky or they crash and they land in. The drone restrictions over regular, normal military installations are really anywhere. Actually, there's very few places that you can actually fly your drone legally in the United States, besides in rural areas and in the woods and stuff like that. So it's what's happening with these and we're under the assumption that these people really are flying up their drones and they're being destroyed and then falling back to the ground.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of that going on. I think there's a lot of hobbyists that are curious, and I think there's a lot of unethical hobbyists that just put stuff up there to see if they can screw with people. See if they can get people stirred up. The same thing as, when you have a UFO sighting, you have people that put up Chinese lanterns just so people will see lights in the sky and get very excited about it. But that's the 4.5%. Now, what's interesting is I think about 0.5% of these things are unknown, cannot be explained using regular means. But what I find telling is you'll see these videos posted on the the news media or on YouTube or Facebook, X, whatever. The person will say, here's this thing I took a photograph of or a video of. What seems to be distinctly lacking is, what's your position when you saw this? What's the latitude and longitude? What's the azimuth of this thing? What direction were you facing? How many degrees above the horizon was it? Did you crosswalk this against known air traffic in your area? Did you use a program like Skywatch to see if perhaps it was Venus or Mars or some other planetary body? Versus just a video with a black sky with flashing lights. We need, before we start hitting the panic button on this, we need a lot more data. Very simple. Compass. Take the azimuth of where you're seeing this thing. GPS. What's your latitude and longitude? Your telephone will double as this. Wristwatch. What time was this thing sighted? And you can really start whittling down a lot of the chaff, a lot of the fluff out of this, and then really focus in on the things that are truly anomalous. And that's where I think the interest is. But we are just being bombarded by partial, fragmentary, and quite frankly, very amateurishly collected data that we have to make an assumption that using Occam's razor that people are misidentifying celestial objects or normal aircraft.
Well, that's what the Aero historical report basically came out and said, that it's all drones. And it's another really interesting thing because we just had that other UAP congressional hearing not too long ago, around 2 to 3 weeks ago, I believe, or it was sometime around that. It was right after that UFO documentary came out on Netflix, which was a run up to the second congressional hearing. And pretty much the entire hearing was about, did you listen to the hearing?
I listened to part of it. I had a friend that was actually there. So he and I have been talking back and forth about perhaps getting to some people and introducing some material. It's
well, what I was mentioning was the entire thing was mostly about like USOs and underwater submergible objects and these these UAP or whatever going in, like trans medium craft that are going into the water, coming up out of the water, back and forth with impunity. And that's pretty much what the entire congressional hearing was about. And then it's kind of strange and maybe a weird coincidence that this is what people are reporting with these drones as well, that they're coming in and up and out of the water. Do we know about any drones that can go in and out of the water?
There are some quad choppers that can fly under the water, then pop out and then fly off. Yeah. But those are hobbyists. Now, if we have developed a hobby, like that, then you can rest assured the government, has developed, craft that can gather data or intelligence underwater and that can fly off. But, another thing I think is really interesting is people saying, oh, it's a secret project. In all the special projects I've ever been involved with, you don't send the asset up into the air with flashing lights and say, hey, look at me, I'm a secret project. The operative word in secret project is secret. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I've been meaning to pick the brain of a mutual friend of ours, who I'm talking about some of this stuff, and kind of see what he thinks about it. But I imagine he'd probably be about along the same lines, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then If they are, so you're basically saying that some of these are mixed with people's, actual, because this is kind of like what the White House correspondent said, like the other day. They were essentially like, we don't have any proof or any evidence that this is, that these drones are over top secret facilities or across any kind of military bases, and I actually have that right here that we're going to listen to again. I showed it the other day on my show, but this is really interesting here.
Activity here on the East Coast, particularly in and around New Jersey. We have no evidence at this time that the reported drone sightings pose a national security or a public safety threat or have a foreign nexus. The Department of Homeland Security and the FBI are investigating these sightings, and they're working closely with state and local law enforcement to provide resources using numerous detection methods to better understand their origin. Using very sophisticated electronic detection technologies provided by federal authorities, we have not been able to, and neither have state or local law enforcement authorities, corroborate any of the reported visual sightings. To the contrary, upon review of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully.
Now, this is so contradictory because one time it's drones, it's unpiloted drones, it's Iran, they're aliens, they're UFOs, and now this White House representative is saying that they're manned aircraft. What do you make of that, Trey? I think you're muted.
Yeah, that I think that might have been a misspeak. I think that he might have meant to say authorized aircraft, because there's aircraft flying around in the airspace, especially in urban areas, that are drones, that are not manned. So but I think for prima facie, I think it's a reasonable statement. I think that most of these are authorized manned and unmanned aircraft, be they conventional fixed wing aircraft, quad choppers, or whatever, either flown by military, commercial, or hobbyist. Some hobbyists do fly drones under the proper authorization with the proper licenses, to inspect chimneys and towers and things like that. Or they are civilian drones that people are seeing and getting upset, and getting all wound up, like this is mine. This is a DJI Mini 2. There's some larger versions of something like this. That's the Mavic. This thing has lights on the front and back of it. And I guarantee if I flew this up, 500-600 feet, the next thing you know, this area would light up about, there's one of those mysterious drones. Well, there's nothing freaking mysterious about this. This is Trey Hudson's drone. So I think there's some of that going on. And I think people want to be part of the story. That's human nature. We're storytellers. We like to be part of what's going on. And that feeds into maybe some of the mass hysteria out there. And I don't say that to be derogatory or demeaning in any way. I think sometimes people just get very excited and they grab on little nuggets of partial information and run with it. Like I said, I have not seen any of these reports come out with a matching video that said I was standing at this latitude, longitude, facing 102 degrees magnetic, and I saw a light 10 degrees above the horizon. I went and I checked with known flight plans. I did not see any known flight plans. This is the time it was. You can check this yourself, world, to see that there were no aircraft in this vicinity. And this is what I experienced. The one thing that's conspicuously absent is you haven't heard MUFON comment on this. If they really thought that these were some sort of mysterious UAPs, believe me, they would have their field investigators out there, and you would have these reports coming in, and they would look at them. And I don't have access to the central system of a reporting system anymore at MUFON, but you will probably see a whole lot of those. That basically say that they're identified as drones or aircraft.
It's interesting the terminology switch here, and from UFO to UAP to now they're just plain old drones. And I think that the question comes in where, well, if they know what they are, then why are they not telling the public what they are? Like, what is so
Well, they,
secret about these drones? I mean, people know that drones exist and that the military has been using drones for a really long time. So why, in your opinion, Trey, is there so much secrecy surrounding what these drones are actually doing? Do you think that they're looking for something? Do you think they're scanning the area? Because
right.
I had heard this from someone that was giving me this information that they're scanning for a suitcase nuke and like biogenetic material and
Yeah.
hazardous material and all that. And then I just sat on it, and then all of a sudden that whole entire thing just like
Narrative.
blew up, and everyone was like, "This is what it really is. They're scanning for biochemical material, some kind of nuke or some kind of nerve agent or whatever." And then I come home, and then I watch the movie on Netflix called Carry On, which is a brand new movie that just came out Friday that essentially depicted the exact same thing.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that to look at there. And I'm going to go back in time, look at some known stuff, bring it forward. Is when the U.S. government, be they military, 3-letter agencies or whatever, are operating in an airspace, and I'll go back in the 90s. If you recall, you had a lot of your tier 1 military units, Delta, DevGru, units like that would do exercises in urban areas, and they'll still do them every once in a while. And they will tell the public, we are doing military training in the Tampa area. You may see aircraft flying around without lights. This is a planned exercise. Do not be alarmed. Because they want to try to prevent the kind of panic that we're seeing now. Trying to prevent the kind of panic that would cause people to shoot down an airframe that might land on somebody and injure them, or might damage an expensive piece of equipment. So there's precedent for, the military or the government notifying people when they have government assets flying over their airspace. I live near a training area, and tier 1 units come and train here all the time. And every once in a while, I'll see blacked out, C-130, C-17s, Black Hawks, various types of airframes fly over my house as they circle around to insert troops into a drop zone not too far from where I live. So, it's not uncommon. Now, talking about the nuclear bio thing is a lot of that is now handled by the National Guard by units called CBRNE units, which is chemical, biological, nuclear, radiological, and energetics. So that's basically your bomb, biochemical, nuke guys. And they have the detection equipment. A lot of times if you have a big thing like the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade, you'll have National Guard CBRNE units out there that have their sensors set up, always sniffing, always watching for this stuff. If it's a lost significant piece of nuclear material that is weaponized, there's a thing called the NEST, or Nuclear Emergency Search Team, with the Department of Energy. And they would be out there with assets, not only airborne, but via ground assets, looking for radiological signatures. Now, one of the things that I heard, based on what you just kind of alluded to, is not the suitcase nuke, but lost nuclear material. Okay. This is a tritium compass. If that becomes lost during a military shipment, guess what? That's lost nuclear material because it's tritium. It's radioactive. So, people don't realize the amount of radioactive material that's used in everyday commercial things. They're used everything from X-raying pipes to make sure that welds are solid. They have mobile units where they will X-ray high-pressure water pipes in the field. Cesium is used and is transported all over this country, used for medical reasons, for the protection or the treatment of cancer and things like that. So, I'm pretty sure that if there was a nuclear suitcase nuke that people really thought was missing, that your local emergency management agency would probably be aware of something going on. And that's the other part of it, is the the local EMAs, they're just as in the dark with anybody else. If there was an operation going on in their, their jurisdiction, they would know about it. They would be brought in on it. And they're just in the dark, no pun intended, as everybody else. And Occam's razor, a lot of times the simplest solution is the accurate solution, is they're just misidentification of aircrafts and, pilots, being naughty and flying around and trying to freak people out. I think you're muted.
One more quarter brings up a really good point here, which I've brought up a couple of times on my show with Ryan Gable the other day on this topic, which is this seems very reminiscent of the Chinese spy balloon. You remember the Chinese spy balloon stuff?
Oh, absolutely. We got notice of that balloon, traversing the United States. And strangely enough, the facility where I was working, we started getting phone calls coming into our office, and they're like, "Oh my God, one of them is over our installation." And so, like, okay, that's crazy. So I go out and I grab my binoculars and I, look up there, and sure enough, there's a giant frigging balloon with a technological payload underneath. And so I started doing some research on it, and guess what? It was an authorized flight by the FAA of a company that is experimenting with bringing broadband to people using high altitude balloons. Those balloons are flying all over the place. They're over us all the time doing various experiments and proofs of concept and things like that. But if we don't look for them, we don't recognize them until it becomes an issue. Then all of a sudden balloons are everywhere. In every high school class that had ever launched a high altitude balloon with a camera or a transponder on it, every kid doing a science project, every, aeronautical school that teaches, budding aeronautical engineers about, how the wind flows and jet streams and all that. Now that's a threat. That's a Chinese balloon. No, they've always been up there. It's the same thing with it. Lights have always been in the sky.
That's really how a lot of the internet is distributed to a lot of parts of the world, is through high altitude balloons.
Correct. Yeah, and in some of the places along the coastal U.S. and on the borders, there's a system called Aerostat, which has a collection platform tethered to the bottom. And now it's a tethered balloon. It's more like a blimp, and it has side-looking airborne radar and other ways to detect people coming in across the border, or boats and stuff coming in, smuggling things, into the U.S. There used to be a really big ship tethered Aerostat down at Key West when I did some work down there at the Joint Caribbean Intelligence Center. So, these things are around. It's just people go about their daily lives and just, don't notice them most of the time.
So the balloon that you've seen outside of your facility, you were able to zoom in on it and see that it wasn't Chinese. It wasn't a Chinese spy balloon.
Well, it didn't have like a big picture of Chairman Mao on the side of it.
Right.
That would have been a giveaway. No, I was able to do a little bit of research, and buried in, in open source stuff was, this company is testing a concept. They'll be flying over this part of the country. And it's like, and then you go to flight FR24, Flight Radar 24. And it's really a cool program. And I recommend that people go ahead and download it now. It's a free app. Is if you see something in the sky that you're not sure what it is, you launch Flight Radar 24. Up in the upper left-hand corner, there's a button called AR. You push that button and your camera comes on in your phone, and you just, whatever it is you're looking at, focus your camera on it. And then down at the bottom, it'll tell you what it is. Oh, that's an L-1011 coming from Cancun. Oh, that's a Cessna 172. Oh, that's a helicopter with a plain vanilla transponder code, probably military. And every time you see a strange light in the sky, just look and see what it is. And just for grins and giggles, I went outside the other night and did it, and I was just amazed at the number of aircraft flying around me. I'm going to see if I can get something to come up here, see if I can get it to work right here with us. Okay, there we go. Let's see.
Yeah, Serene One says, how long would a balloon last? I think they last for quite some time. That supposed Chinese spy balloon was floating around the United States for what, a couple of weeks or something?
I don't know if you can see that. Now, of course, this is pointing, through the wall of my building, but where this phone is pointing, that's the aircraft that it's pointing at. And
Oh, wow.
if I rotate it around, let's see if I can get another one. Well, there's that one. There's some other ones around here, but what it is basically is you point it at whatever you see. Like right now, I'm looking at two flights from Nashville to Atlanta to Alexander City, and then one from Atlanta to Santa Ana, a 757 and a Piaggio P180, or in this direction. So that's kind of the cool thing about this program is if you see flashing lights in the sky and you don't know what they are, well, let's just rule out aircraft.
That seems like a Pokemon Go app for tracking down aircraft.
It's the exact same thing. Got to catch them all.
Got to see all the aircraft, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very handy app. Let people know the name of that app one more time. So
it's called Flight Radar 24. Flight Radar 24.
Light Radar 24. Download that bad boy. Now, I have some videos that I have scanned through the internet, and this is the problem with this kind of event when it happens, is that you get people trying to capitalize off the event and posting old videos and making them seem like they're new videos, or just completely fake videos that are trying to capitalize on some of the supposed real ones that people are capturing. So I can't verify if all of the video, it's like a compilation video that I put together. I can't verify if all of these videos are real craft, or that they're even real videos, or that if they're even taken in New Jersey, because it seems like people are posting from all over the world. They're trying to make this like a worldwide type of thing. They're like, they're in Israel, they're in Arizona, they're everywhere. They all of a sudden they came out of a portal in New Jersey, and now they're just all over the world all at the same time.
That's right. They landed in Grover's Mill, New Jersey, and now the tripods are marching across the landscape. So says Orson Welles, in the War of the Worlds, which was another incident of mass hysteria in New Jersey.
So the video footage I'm about to show you is a compilation that I just threw together last night, and some of it is really unbelievable. So don't get mad at me if any of this stuff is fake or untrue or whatever. I'm just going to give it for people to watch as we're talking about this, as something that they can see and get a visual aspect for some of it. But some of it is really interesting, and some of it just seems completely outlandish. But it's so interesting because, so this one,
red and green flashing lights and a red rotating beacon underside. That's an aircraft.
Yeah, isn't that what? Because me and you have actually been involved with some sky watching using military grade night vision goggles, and you use infrared goggles and infrared cameras and all that doing your investigations at the Meadow. What is it that they say about whenever you see something in the sky and it has blinking or flashing lights when you're doing sky watch?
I'll give you an example of that. We actually have some footage of a UAP that we took in an area near the Meadow. First thing I did is I recorded my exact location. I took my compass out. I shot an azimuth of it, so I knew what the magnetic azimuth was, and I was able to convert that to a true azimuth. I knew how many degrees above the horizon it was. And I had 10x binoculars. I was able to look and see if I could identify any rotating anti-collision lights, red or green lights, anything like that. And then I took the historical data, went back to Flight Radar 24, converted that time to UTC, Universal Coordinated Time, and went back in history for that location to see if there was an aircraft in that direction that I could see from my vantage point, and I couldn't. So that is a unidentified aerial phenomena or unidentified flying object. I'm not saying what it was. It's just I could not identify it. I've had other experts look at it, and they also said, we can't tell what this is. But what we're lacking on a video like that is, where was this taken? What direction was the person facing? What time was it? What day was it?
Yeah, that's I've always been told involved with any of these sky watches with military grade night vision goggles that if something has blinking lights on it,
Yeah.
then it's a plane or a
Yeah.
helicopter or some
Yeah.
kind of drone. Like supposedly a real anomalous phenomenon doesn't have blinking lights on it.
Yeah. I think probably most of the things you see blinking are aircraft until you can research and rule that out, which is what we ended up doing. Is our stuff was blinking that we saw, but we could not find an aircraft that oh, howdy, Walter. I didn't see any aircraft that corresponded with it. Now, what was interesting is when we did that Skywatch out in Nevada, you and Bob and I, all the stuff that, and I'm not going to name the name, but the person that said, "Oh, well, that's a secret space program, command vessel, and that's
The Galactic
those are,
Federation.
those are satellites." Okay, the sky is full of satellites, and if you sit there and you saw the equipment that Bob and I were using, and the other equipment is you look up there with the enhanced night vision, and once again you don't notice all the satellites in the sky until you notice them.
Yeah, that's kind of like a rule with using military grade night vision goggles in any kind of sky watch that if something is blinking and it has blinking lights on it, then it's a, a terrestrial vehicle. It's an
Yeah.
airplane, it's a helicopter, it's a drone or something like that. And that seems to be that almost all of the footage from New Jersey, there's blinking lights on all of the craft.
Yeah.
What's going on,
Yeah.
Walter? Thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah. So
We were just
that
talking.
has,
We were just talking about you earlier, Walter. Good things, nothing but good things.
well, no, I just said our common friend. I didn't mention any names, but if you notice on this thing is, if you see in the upper light, it's red, the lower light is green, and the light in front is white. So that's your red and green navigation lights with a position light up front, the white position light. Okay, now let me look at this one right here.
This one is really strange. Like again, I don't know if
Yeah.
any of this footage is real. I don't know if any of this footage even comes from New Jersey. I just scrolled through the social medias
Right.
and clipped all this stuff together. So I really have no idea. I just brought it on here so that we can take a look at it. This one's weird. What?
Yeah, that's
if
kind of
it's-
weird.
if it's real, it's pretty weird, Trey.
Yeah, the lighting configuration does not look like does not look like an aircraft. Now, I remember I did say I think 0.5% of these things, 0.5%, can't be explained. And you know as well as I do, there are UAPs out there because I've seen them. But it's a very small number. And I think even Walter and I talked about this on another thing about 95% of UAPs are either acknowledged or unacknowledged airframes. I think that that's probably a pretty good percentage. Okay.
Yeah. Here's one that is like a swarm of these drones. This is
Yeah.
one that I don't know if it's real or not. It's definitely
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah, that had a flashing light. One of them looked like a bolide or a meteor.
Yeah. Now these ones are kind of interesting here because this
Yeah.
looks like what's commonly known as the TR-3B.
TR-3, yeah.
Yeah, the military triangular craft that has this kind of exhaust type of port in the center of
The
the
center with the lights on the corners.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always a really interesting one. And one thing I will tell folks is DARPA and the Air Force and other agencies have some amazing technology out there that would just absolutely blow your mind. And at times, sometimes they have to do a proof of concept and shakedowns of this technology, which involves flying over airspace when they can be seen. So that might be what we're seeing here, or it might be something unworldly. I don't know.
Yeah, people don't realize how powerful and how secret DARPA is. I think DARPA is actually responsible for a lot more than we are blaming on a lot of these other organizations and a lot of these other intelligence communities. Would you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I mean, they're developing a lot of really cool stuff. Some stuff's kind of mundane, boring stuff, and some stuff is really cool and swoopy. And, I always talk about this, this example is the F-117 stealth fighter was developed back in the 70s, and it was an operational asset with the 4450th Fighter Squadron. And they flew operational F-117s for years in the 70s and into the 80s at night. They only flew them at night, and their cover was they were a Skyhawk squadron that flew Skyhawk aircraft. That's what they flew during the day as their cover, but they flew the F-117s at night on operational missions. And then in 1991-ish, during Desert Storm, the F-117 finally became public, but it was operational for years. So if you go all the way back to the Have Blue technology demonstrator, which preceded the F-117, it was flying even further back than that as a proof of concept. So these things are flying around. You have airspaces that are traditionally used for testing these type of aircraft. Nellis Air Force Base, the infamous Area 51, Topana, Dugway Proving Grounds, and some other stuff. So, and of course, the military, and DARPA are doing a lot of experiments and a lot of testing and a lot of development with drones. And, all we have to do is look at Ukraine on how drones are such an incredible force multiplier in 5th generation warfare.
I agree. Absolutely. I think DARPA needs to be investigated a lot more and not be so secret. Yeah, this one is highly interesting. And then one of the things just kind of, they just kind of dissipate a little bit there on the left side. But this is a classic configuration of what is a known military aircraft, which is a TR-3B, which also could be droned up as well in some form of unmanned aircraft, or it could be a manned aircraft. Now, this footage is a little shaky because he puts his camera down and then he lifts his camera back up, and then there's one right here to the left. This right here by the tree line that's maybe that's kind of a lot closer to him than the one that looked like a triangle. It's in the tree line, and if we were hearing the actual audio of this, he's kind of freaking out, but I don't want to play the audio because of copyright stuff. But he sees this that's like really close to him, like just hovering above this tree line. It's kind of hard to see it.
Yeah It's that one I don't know for sure what that is or isn't. What you have to be careful with is when you're looking at something in the sky. Yeah, that I don't know. That's an interesting one.
Again, I don't know if any of these are real. If they're not real, I just scanned through social media and found some of the ones that claimed that they were from New Jersey, and I put them all together. So I'm just giving you that disclaimer right out the gate.
In estimation of size and distance, especially at night, that's something we have to be really careful about. And I'll give everybody kind of an example they can understand. If you are driving along a road late at night and it's dark, pitch black, and you have either a motorcycle or a vehicle with only one operational headlight coming towards you, what's the distance of that vehicle?
Well, it would be kind of difficult to determine, right?
Yeah, you have no idea because you have no frame of reference. It's just a light in the dark. And a lot of these things are lights in the dark. Oh, it was the size of a car. Well, was there a car flying up there next to it that you could compare it to? Did it seem closer? Oh, well, it stood still in the sky. Are you on the approach lanes into a busy airport like Newark? And an aircraft approaching the airport will appear to be standing still? Or an airplane coming towards you will appear to be standing still?
Isn't there a term for that the Air Force uses with their pilots? I think there's a term for something like that to measure distance between like different craft and things like that. I can't remember the name of the term. I think Dr. David Morehouse was talking about that one of the times I had him on.
Yeah, and you can use trigonometry if you know where you are and you know the angle, above the horizon, and you know the distance to it, so you can figure out where it is. And you can do a lot of things. Or if there's some sort of known standard of like distance between your position lights, your red and green position lights or things like that, you can determine the size. But and I'm not a trained aircraft observer, but for someone that is, that might be a little bit easier. But to the untrained, average Joe up there that just happens to look up and see something, I think it's really hard to determine distance. I wouldn't be any good at it because that's not really what I'm used to.
Yeah. All right, we got some more footage here. This one looks like but again, you can't really tell how far away it is, but it looks like one of those like regular drones that you get from Best Buy.
Yeah.
But this is supposedly something is leaking out of this drone, and this the stream that's coming out of the drone is something that's leaking or letting fall out of the drone, is what they claim in the video.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult to see, but
Yeah,
because these people are they're just waving their freaking phone around everywhere. Yeah, this is more time lapse footage of
those look
the
like
drones.
just high altitude aircraft. Yeah, like I would tell your listeners, just go out in the sky after this broadcast and just look up and see how many high altitude aircraft you see, flying around. There's a lot more than you think. And especially if they've now downloaded Flight Radar 24, they can say, well, that's an L-1011, that's a 737, that's a, Airbus. And, maybe we can start putting some of this stuff to bed.
It is kind of strange, though, as how many of them there are, though. Like, would you really want to be having all these drones flying in the same area so clustered together?
Yeah, that's a weird one there. Well, and they seem to be all headed in the same direction, like maybe they all want to have the same purpose, maybe.
Yeah, it's like that's the whole purpose of like air traffic control with like planes. You don't want planes all up at the same time because they're going to collide and run into each other. But this one is really
that's kind of a cool one.
Pretty strange. Yeah, they just kind of seem to be gliding along and like littered all over the sky.
Yeah, that's.
But then some people could say that these are that this is like lens flares, or like it's lens flares
Could
off
be.
of the.
I would. I'd really kind of need to really figure out where that is. They don't particularly look like lens flares to me, but I would need a lot more information to try to start maybe digging into this. But it looks, on the face, it looks pretty odd.
Yeah, they're just kind of. Even when the camera's like semi-still, they're still moving around.
Kind of dancing around.
Yeah.
I do know.
Really strange.
And I'm not saying that's what this is. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But I do know I have noticed if I'm out, stargazing and I've got like a cloud cover that I can't necessarily see. Maybe it's dark and I don't see the clouds. And as the clouds move across the star field, I'll see stars wink in and out, and it looks like they're doing all these weird things as the clouds block my vision, and then I get openings to see the stars and all. So I'm not saying that's what that is, but I know that can be kind of a weird effect.
Yeah, it kind of seems like those things that you would buy for your kid or something like that they have now, like Target or Walmart or something, where it has like the little. It's kind of like the thing that I got behind me, but if it was like for like constellations.
Oh, yeah.
What I mean, that projects onto the wall or onto the ceiling or whatever. That's what it.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of looks like.
Well, and then we have the Operation Blue Beam stuff, with the projected holograms, and there's a lot of questionable information out there. I'll just be nice and say that.
Do you think that maybe this is like a way for them to sort of reveal that a majority of this is all of our technology? Like, because they outright and came out and says that it's all drones, right? They didn't even go the anomalous, unidentified aerial or phenomenon at all. They went straight to drones. Do you think that maybe this is an event to get the public more used to the idea that maybe the things that they're seeing in the sky is really our craft and like man-made human technology?
Well, I mean, isn't that what they've been trying to do ever since Project Grudge and Project Blue Book? these are weather balloons. These are natural phenomena. You're looking at the planet Venus, and I think a majority of it probably is. But like J. Allen Hynek said, is you have this huge amount of sightings and encounters that can be explained. When you really start putting the scrutiny on it. But there's this tiny bit, and I think he quoted, correct me if I'm wrong, 10%, that he had no explanation for. He absolutely could not figure it out. So it seems like this has always been poo-pooed by the government for a long time. I was talking about my friend who was actually at the hearing, last month there at the Capitol on the UAP stuff. And what I'm trying to get him to do is get me in with one of our Congress critters. And what I would like to do and propose is the security managers and program security officers and program managers of these special access programs that involve airframes, things moving around the sky, or things being projected into the sky, is the security managers, the program security officers, and security specialists that are experts in derivative classification can take the documents called security classification guides for these programs and really look at these things with a crucial eye and see what can be declassified. Because I can guarantee you there's a lot of stuff that can be declassified if people take the time to do it. But it's a lot of work. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of work. And a lot of people are overworked and really busy, and they take the easy way out. So they take you have to update a security classification guide every 5 years. Is they take, the last SCG, last security classification guide, just redate it, sign it, and send it on. And they don't really take the time to look down, through the stuff that's been classified and say, okay, well, there's no longer reason for this to be classified. We can declassify that. We have airframes that are large, 50 yards, 50 meters in diameter, that can sustain stationary flight without emitting any heat or audible signatures. Maybe we can declassify that. Then your TR-3 thing is like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's one of those airframes. And so what I hope to propose, if I can ever get my foot in the door to Congress, is, set up a panel that's read into these programs that can really start sifting through this and determine what needs to be kept secret and let the public know on everything else. And I think it would clear a lot of this stuff up.
Do these drones that you're aware of, Trey, like the one that you are pictured here with in Afghanistan, do these drones make noise? Do they emit a loud noise?
Yeah, that one has a propeller on the back of it. But we would see those things flying around the sky. And I actually got a chance to sit in on an operational mission where one of these things was watching was a bunch of troops on motorcycles and ATVs that were basically paralleling one of our convoys. And the concern was that they were Taliban that were getting ready to attack the convoy. And right before the system, the Predator was about to launch some scunion on them, because it was they were in radio contact with an A-10, is they were able to squawk IFF, some special forces guys that were operating in that area on ATVs. So they were able to squawk identification friend or foe IFF. And so, the A-10 vectored off and nothing happened. But this thing was flying so high, this Predator, Sky Warrior, they could not hear it. It flew at such an altitude that right here, this flag was actually put on one of those drones and flown for me in Afghanistan. It was actually put inside of the airframe and flew on a mission. So, but they flew so high that, you didn't know they were there. The only time you really knew they were there is when they would come in for a landing.
What year was this photo taken?
That was
with
in
you?
2009.
How more advanced do you think that these drones have? Like, how many leaps and bounds do you think that they've gotten? Because there's been several people in the chat here that saying that these drones are like just completely stationary. That they're just hovering there. Do you think that we would be able to have that capability now for the drone just to hover in place for long periods of time?
Absolutely. They have drones now that are fixed wing. They'll fly, like an airplane. And then when they get to their position, they'll rotate their wings up and they'll hover. They'll fly using a wing for efficiency. And then when they get to where they need to loiter, they'll hover. This stupid thing, and this isn't a cheap drone. It's, by no means one you buy at Walmart, but that technology was like science fiction back in the 80s, and that's something that I can buy off of Amazon. So, yes, there are drones that can, lock into a solid location and loiter over a target, a location, or whatever. I'm not going to say indefinitely, but for a very long time. And now you can get really, really funky if you start talking about remote piloted aerostats, which are blimps that have 4 propellers on them that can fly to a location, lock on. Now they're drones, there's no pilot, and then they can rotate their propellers and props, keep the thing stationary, and it just hangs over a location, and it lasts a very long time because the majority of the lift is coming from the airbag, the helium, and all the rotors do is really just kind of keep it in position. It can loiter for a long time. Now, if you take that and you combine it with solar power, like maybe a solar array on the outside of the envelope, maybe indefinitely. So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff out there.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is how are the drones that you're aware of, like this one with you in Afghanistan from 2009, what are these drones being powered by? Are these gas drones, or like, because there's of course the theory that this is a foreign threat, and then that there's a mothership placed off of the East Coast and they're sending these drones in, but other people have said, well, if these really are drones, they wouldn't have enough fuel or whatever it is that they're powered on in order to get to New Jersey and then get all the way and stay there for a long time and then get all the way back to the mothership without running out of fuel.
I'm trying to think what the latest and greatest one is that's publicly acknowledged. I think is the MQ-9 Reaper. I think that might be right. And forgive me if I get my nomenclature wrong, but basically it's a large, huge drone, powered by a turbofan, and it can fly thousands and thousands of miles and loiter over a target for a period of time and come back. What's really gets interesting is some of the drones flown over there in Afghanistan were actually piloted by pilots back here in the States, as they were at the various airfields, be it Bagram or Kandahar or wherever, and they would actually be launched, but the operators were actually back in the States. So it's it's really really interesting. And like I said, and we just saw a video that came out, I think today or yesterday, where the Ukrainian intelligence is taking small sport aircraft, which is that level of aircraft between regular type airplanes like Cessnas and stuff, and hang gliders and things like that, powered, things like that. It's kind of right in the middle. I think it's called a sport class. Is they're taking aircraft like that, putting in a servos and everything to fly it remotely, packing it with explosives, and they just attacked a police station in Grozny and flew this airplane literally right into the police station and blew the whole thing up. So that's how fast it's developing, just using COTS or commercial off-the-shelf technology. Now, you start getting into some of the higher end technology that we might not be aware of. No pun intended, but the sky's the limit. And I think you might be muted again. Hey, Ryder, you're muted.
Dang it. Got me muted, dude.
It speaks. It speaks.
And one more time. Get me again, dude. No, I think that it's no, I lost my train of thought because I was just going on and on and on. Now I don't even remember what I said. I think that it's a possibility that these are our craft, our military technology, and Trump is saying that they are, that the military knows what they are, but that for some reason they're not saying what they are. And for me, it kind of reeks of this this telltale sign of, well, some kind of event in the future that they're kind of setting up for, like right now, because we know that they love to plan ahead way far in the future. We're thinking about tomorrow, we're thinking about next week or next month. These people are thinking about decades
Oh yeah,
in the future
absolutely.
and what's going to happen decades in the future. And it feels like that we're getting some kind of setup for this kind of stuff now, and it just in a few weeks it's going to completely go away, and then something else is going to pop up. It's exactly like with 2020 and the setup for everything surrounding 2020, and how many of these viruses and diseases that we were pre-prepared for before 2020 happened. It seems like
Right.
that this is what they're kind of doing with this UFO and UAP stuff and these drones, is they're setting something up for further along in the future, so that they can get people prepared and like interested in this what's going on now. So then whenever the event actually happens, it's more accepted than it would be if the
Yeah.
event just you
The-
know what I mean.
the crazy thing about that is, and I remember having a discussion with a lieutenant colonel back when it first came out. But you remember when the Go Fast and the gimbal and the Tic Tac videos came out, and the DoD said yes, they are real. These are objects that were tracked by our pilots on various airframes that were flying in non-ballistic ways. The trained naval aviators, which a lot of them had degrees in aeronautical engineering, could not identify the means of propulsion, the means of control or anything like that. That was earth-shattering, in my opinion. How many people in the public really even seem to care?
None.
Not many.
Zero.
Okay, but now we've got airplanes being sighted over New Jersey, and everybody's going crazy. So it kind of makes me wonder, when the truth, whatever that is, finally comes out, is it going to be ho hum? But I do get a sense, and this is just a sense. This isn't anything official. I don't have any knowledge, but it seems like I'm not going to use the word desensitized. That's probably too strong of a word, but maybe inoculated to this high strangeness. So when it finally does come out, or finally is released, or if they ever listen to me and actually sit down and start declassifying some of this UAP stuff that can be released, that the public will say, yeah, we kind of knew that all along.
Yeah, that's been my point about the moon landing stuff as well. Like if finally we got some kind of revelation or some kind of documentation finally came out that the moon landing footage was 100% fake, like, would people care? Would people care at that point? Because there's such a large group of people that already believe that at least the footage of the moon landing is fake. There's a whole separate group of people that believe that we never even went at all, but that's
Right.
different than that's different. That's something completely different than believing that the footage is fake. The
Right.
footage can be fake, and we still went to the moon.
Right.
The footage is just there's a lot of reasons why they could have faked the footage. There's actually a movie coming out here really soon that's all about that, where
Yeah.
they shot the faking of the moon landing so that they can at least give the perceived idea that we went, so that we can be
Mhm.
ahead of Russia. So I guess that's my point, is that like eventually when this stuff comes out and people really do get the truth, there's such a large gap in between when the event happens and whenever we get the actual factual truth. And by that time that we get the real truth, no one cares anymore.
Well, something near and dear to your heart, if President-elect Trump does, follow up on what he said about declassifying and putting all of the data out there about the Kennedy assassination, or supposed Kennedy assassination, when it comes out, are people going to say, what are the Kardashians doing? Or what's the latest song, rap song in the top 10? But there's going to be a very small segment of the population that's really going to be like all your Jim Mars devotees and all these really excited about it. But are people going to care, because that was so long ago? I mean, that happened. I turned 60 this week, and that happened before I was born. So how relevant is that?
something really interesting about the JFK assassination, which is this Vanity Fair article
yeah.
that
Yep.
that just came out recently that says why JFK staged his own murder in a James Bond inspired spy film 2 months before his assassination.
Yeah, I read that.
Did you read that?
I did. That's very strange. And it's really, it struck me the part, the part that just kind of creeped me out is, where they talked about, Jackie was, the director, and they were filming it, and they came in and there was, JFK laying there with, ketchup on him, pretending like he was dead on the floor. And then they went out and did the assassination scene on the dock and all. If you're the sitting POTUS, that just seems creepy as hell to me. I mean, it just seems really weird to even joke about something like that, because it's not like, assassinations of the president, weren't known. There have been several, I think 3 previous presidents assassinated. So why would you joke about something like that? That seems very, on the worst case scenario is it was, all, getting prepared for the ultimate cover-up, like you talked about in JFKX. That's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is they were just being macabre as hell. And neither one of those reasons really sits well with me.
Yeah, I was really shocked when I read that article and Jay had sent it to me. I was like,
Mhm.
wow, I cannot believe this. And it seems like that it was a trial run.
Yeah.
It was a trial run because it happened 2 months, directly 2 months before the supposed real assassination, with the same Secret Service agents that were
Yes.
also there November 22nd, 1963, of the supposed in Dealey Plaza.
Well, and they said, oh, hey, Secret Service agents, protective service detail. Hey, we want you to play along. So we want you to like drive up like you're really excited and come piling out of your car and run around and
Pretend you heard gunshots. That's
Yeah,
what Jackie told them.
right. And any professional, protective service agent would say, yeah, you know what? That's not my job. My job is to protect the POTUS, and that detracts from my job. So no, thank you. So that's a creepy story. It's very weird, and I'm still, when I read it, I'm like, it's going to take me a while to kind of sit and mull this over, to kind of really come up with what I feel, because it's uncanny. The story is very uncanny.
And very similar to our documentary JFKX. It's
Right.
almost
When I read the thing about the ketchup and all, I thought that they talked about a squid pack. I mean, it's almost
yeah.
exactly the same.
But your feelings about it is the same feelings that a lot of people that I've sent it to that's also watched our movie JFKX, that they're feeling the exact same way. They don't really even have words to describe exactly what's going on. I was just on my friend Ryan Gable's show today, and that's what we were talking about. He was like, "Well, how do we even know? Like, I don't even have the words to describe what I feel or how I even feel about this." And he had watched my movie before that article came out.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's just really like I'm not a superstitious guy, but I wouldn't go film a movie about the assassination of Trey Hudson, because I just think that's kind of macabre and weird. But here they were doing it, out there frolicking next to the seashore.
Yeah, it's so wild. There's this program that's called Project Convergence. That is a program from the United States, the UK, and Australia. I have the which is AI test-powered drone swarms and groundbreaking military exercise. And this article came out August 13th, 2024, which is artificial intelligence, Australia, California, drone technology, drones, United Kingdom, and the United States. And this is what the drone, which it looks very similar to the drone that you're depicted by
Right.
within Afghanistan. And these drones are equipped with artificial intelligence capabilities. And that would explain how, because the reports in New Jersey are that they go dark. Like whenever something gets close to them, they just kind of like power down and turn off all of their lights. Well, if this was an AI, artificial intelligence type of drone, whenever they would sense something coming close to them, they would go dark, right? They would turn off their lights. Are you familiar with if the military is using these AI powered? I mean, obviously they are. This is a real article, but were you familiar with this at all? Like the
Yeah,
artificial intelligent drones?
not officially. I can surmise, if we're using AI to create drone swarms that make the face of Uncle Sam in the sky on the 4th of July, I can guarantee the military is probably using a very similar technology for other things. And if we take that one step further, as reference the New Jersey thing, is the military and the government are working on a lot of anti-drone technologies. I hope to be able to get to see some of those technologies here next year. I might be able to weasel my way into an invite to see some of that technology. But what if, now I'm just throwing a what if out there. What if the military or the government developed anti-drone technology that was based on a kinetic kill, i.e. you had a counter drone that flew around, that kind of lurked around looking for other drones, and it would fly up close to it and shoot out an item, maybe something the size of a cue ball that would hit it, knock that drone out of the sky. So it would get close to it, within maybe half a mile of its target, it would black out, fly up, shoot a cue ball or, some other kinetic, device, knock that out of the sky, and then go back to its patrol position and loiter or fly its patrol pattern. So is it a stretch of the imagination that there are counter drones that have been put up by the government to maybe start either investigating or engaging with some of these other things, especially if they're over sensitive airspace? Like this dude I talked about, Michael B., that flew his drone into Picatinny. He sees a drone, might have been a government drone, flies up to it. It shoots an electromagnetic weapon at it, fries out the electronics of that drone, and it drops. Now he's in trouble. So I'm not saying that's what there is, but as a thought experiment, does that not make sense? Would that not be an intelligent way to go about developing a certain part of your counter drone capabilities?
Well, China also has their own aerial drone clusters for
Right.
swarm attacks as well. Scientists
Right.
claim new drone can split into multiple units while airborne,
Mhm.
giving China a new tactical edge in drone swarm warfare.
I'm not confirming or denying that that's the technology is being used in New Jersey, but wouldn't it be interesting if it was?
Chinese scientists have developed a new type of war drone that can rapidly multiply midair, a tactical shock and awe phenomenon against potential adversaries like the U.S. and South China Morning Post reported. The new drone is similar to a consumer-grade Chinese DJI multi-rotor, which can split into 2, 3, or 6 smaller drones depending on battle needs.
Yeah.
Does that
And
not seem similar to what's going on?
Yeah, and that's open source. That's
Yeah.
that's the Chinese have allowed that information to be put out. So, what's not being put out? So I think, it's probably a combination of all this. Now, remember when at the beginning of the conversation, I said authorized airframes, be they manned or unmanned, and counter drone airframes flying by the government would be authorized airframes. They're not enemy. They're not, our buddies from Zeta Reticuli. They're authorized unmanned airframes flying in this airspace. So, if you look at what, what the DOD came out and publicly said, it's like, okay, that kind of, if you listen to what they say and really listen to the words, that makes sense. That would fit into what they were saying, and their statements would be a truthful statement.
Yeah, which makes sense with this article with the US and the UK and Australia doing
Right.
this, all being together on this to test their AI powered drone swarms.
Now, scoot the photograph down just a little bit, and I want you to notice something. If you notice that these drones have 2 sets of rotors, they have horizontal rotors. You can see up near the nose, that's for level loitering flight. And then they have, looks like, propellers near the rear for flight forward. So they would use wings to create lift to conserve fuel as they're flying, forward, and then they would convert into, loitering drones like a quad chopper and could hover.
This does seem very reminiscent of some sort of military exercise, exactly like what this article states, and that's a common thread throughout many events, that there's always this type of military exercise that's going on right around the same time that a real event happens. That's like
Yeah.
common. That happened with 9/11. It happened with the Boston Marathon bombing, and like so many events. There's a military exercise that's happening during the exact same time that the event is happening, and the military exercise is to prevent the real thing from happening.
Yeah, you can't see it here, but up on my wall, I've got my patch wall where, people give me things. And one of them is a tab that's OD green with black writing, and it says Jade Helm. And I'm just going to say somebody gave that to me. So, take that for what it's worth. So,
What do you think that was? Do you think that Jade Helm, that was a military exercise? Right?
Yeah, that was a military exercise. I think it was nothing nefarious. I think, we run military exercises all the time. I know, when I was working with, some of the logistical units here in the continental U.S., is they would do exercises to move huge logistical packages. I'm talking like, hundreds of tanks, or something like that. And they would practice moving these things from the West Coast to the East Coast, and they would bring in military units that would put these things on the rail car. They would move them cross country, and then they would meet them at their endpoint, take them off, bring them into, operation, fuel them, get them ready to go, to make sure that capability existed. Or they would see if, can we get assets from the West Coast to our pre-positioned ships on the East Coast? And so they would practice this stuff, and you would see military, military shipments moving, via rail and over the road. Every once in a while you'll run across a, military convoy with heavy combat vehicles on it, strikers and things like that. And it's not like, they're getting ready to invade, the U.S., set up the FEMA concentration camps. No, they're practicing moving assets around, and that's how we keep sharp, in DOD, is by continuously exercising. And the best way to exercise is to actually do it.
Well, Trey, you don't believe that they were transporting thousands of coffins, like what was reported, and guillotines? No. Do you remember when they said that they were transporting guillotines?
Yeah, there was a horrible regime and group of people that made exterminating human beings an industrial exercise, and they did not use guillotines. So if I was going to execute thousands and millions of American citizens, the guillotine is not the most effective way to do it. Unfortunately, those tests have already been done in Germany, Poland, Romania, and places like that. So it was kind of stupid. And the pictures of the coffins, it's like, wow, those look a lot like subterranean septic systems to me. But what do I know? And so it was pretty funny. And then, of course, I remember I saw some photographs on the internet of a concentration camp. It was a training site that U.S. Army military policemen used to set up enemy POW camps. So they had practice on how to set up a camp, how to man it, what the guard towers would look like. So the units that are responsible for not corrections, but for containment of enemy POWs, actually could get some experience running a enemy POW camp. And that's all it was. It was an unused training site. The military has all kinds of training sites that look like cities and mountains and tunnels and anything.
Yeah, because they have to train for all territory, right?
Right.
So you're going to have them in the mountains, you're going to have them in the desert, you're going to have them in multiple terrains of weather.
Right.
And you're going to have them all over the place. But that type of story doesn't sell, Trey.
Yeah, no. It's not sexy. I was telling you, sometimes people are more interested in the sizzle than in the steak. They'd rather, really focus on, the steak smelling good and sounding good than actually sitting down and eating it. They're more interested in the overwhelming sensation than actually enjoying the meal.
I agree, Trey, and that's why I like you, and that's why I brought you on again. And thank you very much for coming on, my friend. Really appreciate it. It was a wonderful conversation, and I think that we did a pretty good job talking about these drones. And regardless of what you believe, whether you believe that it's some sort of fake alien invasion project, blue beam setup, which I don't think is out of the realm of possibility. It could be quite possible that some event in the future happens surrounding these types of things, and then we have to kind of fight off the external threat in order to reveal our technology. And there's a couple of ways that they can go with that. They can either go that direction and say that there are these, this external threat that's coming down. So then we got to create this technology in order to defend ourselves from this threat. All the while, it's actually our technology, and we're actually defeating ourselves or taking down our own technology in order to reveal that it's all our technology. Or they can go the route, which it seems that they're also kind of leaning into, is kind of coming out and displaying that a lot of the stuff that we may be seeing is drone technology. It already is our craft, and this could be like a self-disclosure of that this isn't extraterrestrial alien technology. This is our craft, and that's the reason why we're not telling you exactly what it is. And they by not saying anything about it, that they're ultimately saying exactly what it is.
Sometimes you say things by not saying them. Absolutely.
Thanks so much for coming on, Trey. Can you let people know where to find you and where they can purchase your book that you have out, and when the new book is going to come out, and any projects that you have lined up?
The best place to find me is if you want to engage directly is Trey Hudson -author on Facebook. My webpage is www.treyhudsonresearch.com. My book, The Meadow Project, is out on Amazon and pretty much any format you want. It's even out there in French if you parlez-vous français. My upcoming projects is I have a project that is coming out in January. It's a film about cryptid research in the land between the lakes, but the filmmakers encounter some really weird stuff out there. So they reach out to a guy named Trey Hudson and want to visit the meadow to see if they can understand some of the high strangeness they encountered. And boy, they encountered some high strangeness in the meadow, which was captured on film. So that comes out. The premiere will be in January. Unfortunately, I don't know what platforms it's going to be, be shown on. As soon as I know, I'll get that information out. And then there's another. I'm trying to think what I can disclose. There's another project that many people, if they've been following my research, will be interested in. We wrapped up primary filming last month. It's in post-production. So hopefully I'll be able to disclose some information out there. When I'm able to disclose this, there'll be some, other than myself, there'll be some names that are very familiar to everybody. So that should be a lot of fun. And it was a great experience. We captured some really neat stuff on that. So my second book, if I can get people to leave me alone so I can sit down and finish writing it, I'm about probably 75 to 80% done with that. It should be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to it.
What is that going to be about? Is that going to be a follow-up to the Meadow Project?
It's basically a follow-up to the Meadow Projects, everything we've done from the end of the first book to now. One of the cool things is we brought a hypnotherapist and psychotherapist onto our team, on our staff, ASOG staff. So we actually are taking some of the members of ASOG and doing hypnotic regression. You're thinking, like Bud Hopkins, stuff like that, John Mack. And some of the revelations are breathtaking, just absolutely stunning. So those are going to be in the book. I hope to get it written, sometime in 2025, get it wrapped up, get it to the presses, get it published, and get it out there so folks can read it.
Did you have to blindfold the people that were going to film at the Meadow Project?
It's funny. Like I said, the names, when it comes out, you'll recognize some of the names. And one of them said, I had to sign an NDA. So, everybody sat down with a stack of NDAs and signed them. And then I developed what's called an operation security plan for the Meadow Project. and with a list of what's called CIL, a critical information list of things that they can't disclose. So, but the only thing that they're not going to disclose in their film is the actual location. All the rest of their experiences are going to be out there for the world to see.
I would love to go out there and visit that place, but at the same time, like, I don't really want to. I'm given up on doing the paranormal investigation stuff. It's just too much for me. I can't handle it anymore. It plays too many psychological games on you, and we have enough psychological stuff going on in like the government and all these drones and all the media and like all that stuff. I mean, people are getting psychologically tricked into all kinds of stuff nowadays. I don't need to be psychologically tricked by something that I can't even see.
you gotta be resilient. That was one of the funny things in this film coming out in January is you had the producer or the director that I was doing an SD session with, and the cinematographer and their production assistant were seeing shadow people, kind of moving around them while we were doing SDs. And they were luckily able to capture them on film, which is going to be really cool once that comes out and is disclosed. But it freaked them out so bad, the cinematographer and production assistant, like, nope, we're out. We are never coming back to this place ever, ever, ever again. So, it can kind of put the woo-woo on your brain for sure.
Yeah, and you've spoken about that several times about the disorientation that you get when you're out there. I'm just like, I'm not about that anymore. Like, I go hiking in the woods, up in the mountains all the time, and that's about as interesting as I get these days. And I actually stayed at a haunted hotel the other day, which was really wild. I didn't even know that it was haunted. It was just a historical hotel. And then I put the name of it in Google and I came up haunted after that. But we didn't experience anything while we were there. But still, I just completely stay away from it now. But whenever the movie comes out, come back on the show and we'll promote it and let everybody know where they can purchase that or watch that movie whenever it comes out. And thanks for coming on again, and thanks everyone in the chat. Appreciate each and every single one of you. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button to help the channel and the algorithm. Share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.